Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of The Working Ant with me, your host and coach, Rami Balut. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're safe. I hope you are staying dry with this weather we continuously have, at least here in California. Hope things are actually going well for you, wherever you are, whatever it is you may be doing. The power of the bad, continues to be real. We see that over and over again in newspapers everywhere, specifically relating to layoffs and people focusing on years and months and quarters of efficiency, whichever way you want to call it, making public apologies for overhiring, for thinking that, times were going to continue down where there were 0% interest rates or near 0% interest rates, and there's free money everywhere. And all of a sudden, there's banks that are failing as a result of this, and federal government stepping in. And so you're like, oh my gosh, what is really going on here? How much faith should I put in the system? And you know what? Amidst all of this, I think so many of us are trying to focus on the level of clarity we do or don't have in the work we actually do. And for those that are not experiencing a level of clarity in the work that they're actually doing, it becomes very, very challenging not to feel depleted in energy, not to feel like you may be burning out, and not to feel that you really honestly have nowhere to go or don't know where you're going, or sort of like trying to ride this whole entire storm out with no real indication of like when things will start to open up again. And like here, I sort of take issue with a few things, and that I want you to actually be cognizant, aware of, is that, when we look at things from the perspective of like, okay, things are going to get better, I can just like ride this whole entire storm out and things are going to be all right. What we end up doing is we get into a place of really what I'd like to say here is we get to a place of feeling almost as if we are complicit and complacent with the situation that is going on outside of our windows in the macro, things we can't control, forces that are beyond our power. And so as a result of that, we're like at the whims of like what's going to happen in our societies. And thus we feel like we should stay in a neutral zone, at least mentally and emotionally, while physically we're just like burning the midnight oil and trying to get things done operationally and keep the lights on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The issue I take with this is, I think what we should be doing and what you should be considering doing during times like these is actually quite the opposite. And that is really, really getting a good understanding of like where you want yourself to be in the future. It's rewriting your role description, rewriting where you feel you are at today, where you should be at, and like what success truly looks like from the perspective of the benefit you bring into the organization. And many of times during a situation like this, so many of us are so hyper focused on trying to do all these different things we're being asked to do, especially those of you that have lost members of your team and that work has actually come back to you, and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, it's come back to me now, so I got to do more. Those of you that are being asked to sort of measure a lot of the work that you're doing, not equating motion with progress. The struggle there is real too, because you're like, oh my gosh, so where is it that I should be focusing? What is it that I should be doing? How is it that I actually fit into this overall picture? And when come, performance evaluation time, how am I going to present myself in the most impactful and compelling way? And, we may choose the easy route to ignore so much of this, but it gets so problematic because, in a situation like this, what we should in fact be doing is really going back to evaluate our roles and where our roles are of the greatest benefit to our teams, to our organization, to the company. But at the same time, it's like, if we were to redesign our role, what would that actually look like? If we were to be on the path of growth, what does that actually look like? If we look at the life cycle of our career, where do we fall today? Are we on the toddler side of things? It's still like a level of like immaturity where we're like not truly understanding where we're going, but we're trying to specialize one place, being asked to focus on another place, being pulled in, for another project here and there. Or are we actually reaching a level of maturity where we're just like operationalizing a lot of the work that we're doing? Are we in fact, at a place where we are heading, at least the perception is like downhill, and we're like, oh my gosh, if I continue down this path, I don't think there's going to be anything quite compelling about my career that I can share with a hiring manager or an organization one day. I don't really know sort of like how to discuss in a very positive and impactful way the impact my role is actually making on my team and my organization. I need to actually fix that. And I think here, especially during times like this, when everybody's trying to make sense of what's going on, when everyone's trying to focus on so many things that are causing so much burnout and confusion, this is truly where you need to take a step back. Like really, really take a step back, create some space for yourself, recognize that everyone is moving so fast. They're probably not even noticing a lot of the work that you may be doing. And you may be able to be in a really great position to just like whiteboard out, journal out, talk through it with someone in your fabulous five, someone that you feel like, hey, you know what? If I were to do things differently from now until things open up, like how can I position myself accordingly where there is some really great benefit to the work that I'm actually doing? How can I make the most out of this situation that is so chaotic, where most people are thinking to themselves, okay, I've got to just keep my job and do everything I can to keep it. And for those that have been laid off, they're like, oh my God, it's such a tough market. How am I going to position myself accordingly? Wherever you may fall here, I think, it's, the competition is real. There are many people doing similar work. There are many people that are doing things in different ways. And I feel like if we're going to focus on positioning ourselves where most people are actually going, then we're probably going to find ourselves in a place where there's not so much value that we can convey in a conversation. And so I want you to shift the mound here. Look to a different place. Try to find like your unfair advantage. Focus on a unique value proposition, a unique selling point, a niche that you may have that others simply don't have. It could be a part of your skill set, your capabilities. It could be a part of your ability to capacity plan, like your organizational skills and like where you focus, how you choose to operate, where you choose to accommodate resources and how you sort of plan around that. And it could be on the personality front, which is your level of commitment to an organization, through the form of like coaching, mentorship, things that you feel that you bring that no one else does. And this could be something like in threes, like, 3 things someone can learn from you. What are those things? 3 things you bring into the organization that are clearly distinctive and different than what others actually bring in. 3 things that you look to acquire in your existing personal professional career that may help you get to those other 3 things. What are those things? I think there's a really, really good time to like really think about those things. And at the same time, it's a lot to ask because it's also the most difficult time to do so. When so many other people are focused on so many other things, I believe there's like a core group of individuals that are focused on something that is the most essential for them. Setting themselves up in a way where they're thinking about, what? I need to have a career that is meaningful to me, that is joyful to me, where I feel like I'm aligning myself where I should be aligning myself, where it matters to align myself, where I sleep better at night knowing that I'm aligning myself accordingly. And I got to be okay with the fact that there are things that may be expected of me that I just may not deliver in the way that others want me necessarily to deliver. And that just may be a feeling that I have. And I got to be okay with that. Instead, I'm going to be focusing on things that actually do matter to me, that do align with my values. I want to be able to focus on a company who products and services align with things that I could support, a mission and vision that I could rally behind, and I think that's a fair ask at any time of day, at any time of year, at any point in your life, to be able to focus on these things. If you don't do it, who else is going to do it? Someone else is going to come in and just say like, look, this is where I want you to focus moving forward. Hey, you know what? You've gotten really, really good at this. Stay focused on that. Stay in your lane there. And then what happens? Like we just continue to go down that route, and then something gets disrupted down the line, and all of a sudden we find ourselves focused on one thing when we should have been focused on another thing. Look, that's just going to continue. That cycle is going to continue. Where you're going to be able to find your benefit is to find out like where, hey, I can put myself in a position that matters, that gives value to an organization, and at the same time generates a level of passion that yields some form of relative profitability in my life. Is it through learning? Is it through the relationships that I'm building? Is it through the scope and the impact that I'm chasing after? Is it through, a compensation that could be game changing, that could elevate the quality of life that I've built for myself and my family? What are those things, right? Whatever they are, I think you just need to be very, very crystal clear on what it is you're doing this for. And if you're not being recognized today for those things, it may not be the ask of your leadership or of your organization to recognize you for it. It may be right now your chance to take that into your own hands and start pushing out information that aligns the perception you want to have of yourself with the perception others may have of you today. Maybe this is a really, really great time to start asking people that you interact with what the level of perception is they have of you, so you can start creating something even more powerful for your personal branding, somewhere in the near future. I'm just one to believe that if you don't take control of this, then others are just going to swoop in and do it for you. And you may argue that it's human nature. Hey, you know what? It's a dormant time. Let me just put my head down. Let me just work. Let me stay off the radar here. Let me get off the grid a little bit and just do what I need to do to survive. But I'm telling you that if you don't do these things, then your survival rate for the future is going to decrease, and maybe in the short term it'll increase, but that just sets you up for even more pain when you're trying to sort of like reassess where you truly, truly, truly add the most significant amount of value that aligns with who it is that you are. These innate skills, these unique skills that you actually bring to an organization, this manifestation of emotion that you actually have in human form. And if you don't take a position where you can be on this mission, well, then what are we leaving things for? For chance? I just don't think we should bet on that. I think what we should do is put ourselves in a position where we're creating opportunities for ourselves, even if it's like another year or two down the line, but where we can actually feel comfortable and excited to have a conversation on the work we're actually doing. If you can't get to that point, then I've got news for you. Well, I mean, news you probably already know, and this is not to add a level of anxiety or fear, none whatsoever. I want you to feel invigorated and stimulated to take more control over the work that you're doing. And when we're not in a place where we have full social efficacy and belief over our capabilities based on the work that we're actually doing, it's just a way that the universe is telling us to realign ourselves to where we actually do things that do in fact matter. And so going back to something I've said before, and I'll say it again, that which we want most of, we must be prepared to give. Put yourself in a position where the role that you are applying for is precisely what you're pitching today. What would that look like? What would that be? What would you have to do in order to get that done? How can you generate a strong enough narrative with clear signals over the path that we're taking is in fact yielding a level of profitability that matters to us, that matters to you? And, again, it's just so easy to open up any major newspaper today, good ones, that are talking about all these whims and woes and this uncertainty in this market and in this atmosphere and how we should plan ahead and what you should be doing and where you should be investing. Hey, you know what? I feel like those things are secondary. What I think is primary here is, how are you sleeping at night? What's the last thought that comes to mind before you go and get some sleep? And when you wake up in the morning and you're about to start your day, how are you feeling about it? And if you're not feeling that, you know what, like, hey, I'm in this and I feel truly engaged. I just feel like, well, that's not deserving of you. Like that's not a deserving lifestyle to have when our lifestyles today are continuously reminded by like the fragility that exists within it. Um, and you don't need me to tell you all this, but maybe you need me to remind you of all this. You've got to put yourself in a position where you are your own recognition. And you've got to be open, honest, and frank with yourself, even if it's painful. Rigorously question yourself constantly about the path that you're taking, about the conversations you're having, about the products you're promoting and pushing out, about the metrics you're choosing to engage with and showcase, about the value you truly believe you're giving to an organization, about the benefits you can bring to another if you're in a position of transition today. You've got to put yourself in this, in a spot where, hey, you know what? It's uncomfortable now, but I'm setting myself for comfort in the future. And I feel like that long-term way of thinking, that long-term investment, that long-term approach, especially when it's most difficult, especially when the power of bad has never been so powerful. That's when it truly, truly matters. I know you can do it. I know you can get there. I know it's not easy. I know there's a lot of asks. And I know in situations like this, it's hard to be creative with oneself. It's hard to really think through a future that is promising, that is beautiful, that matters, that is relatable. I know it is. But it's in these moments, in these precise moments, where it matters the most. So please, for the sake of yourself, for the future version of yourself, get in a rhythm of recreating your brand, get in a rhythm of creativity over like what the future may look like, get in a rhythm of thinking through what you may need to get there, whether it's skills, whether it's a belief system you've had that you no longer want to pursue, whether it's a value that you feel that has, evolved, perhaps even changed, whether it's a chapter you need to close in your life, whether it's something you really need to kill psychologically for you to move on, whatever that may be, go for it. Don't let anyone stop you from doing so. You are only getting in the way of you here. It's your estimate of things that matter. And it's that power that you have to make something much larger than what it is, smaller than what it is, significant or insignificant what it is, at least for the sake of us on our journey with one another. Make your constant growth, make your constant forward-looking change of what it is that you want to be, that exists within you, at least for the sake of that. Let's continue to be relentless in our pursuit of it. And may the journey continue. And with that said, thank you for investing your time with me. I'm honestly so privileged of that. I don't take your time investing with me for granted. I love your messages. I love your emails. I love your voices of support. Just letting me know like how this may have changed something. And also like, some ideas over like, hey, you know what? This is up and coming, Rami. Maybe this is something that we can talk about in the future. I'm totally open to that as well. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your life. Until next time, this is your host and coach, Rami Balut, signing out for another version and episode of The Working End. Bye for now.